think any of us, if we live an adventurous life or a creative life, we welcome change. Sometimes we're apprehensive about that change because change isn't an easy situation. We don't quite know the outcome. With us today is a guest who is embarking on change that not only affects his life, but could affect the lives of all members of the southeastern Michigan community. And that man is Dennis Archer, the mayoral candidate for the city of Detroit. We're delighted that you're here with us.
Thank you. Thank you very much.
And I guess the word change, when I think of your background, Mr. Archer, and I think you have been a judge, you have been a lawyer's lawyer, your opinions are valued because of their intelligence and I think with their common sense. Why would you embark on letting go of your orderly, scholarly life, if I can say that, and taking on the political arena?
Well, thank you very much for perhaps your generous observations, but I frankly think I can take my professional life experience and a commitment to excellence and translate that into working very hard to bring about a great city called the city of Detroit, and utilizing upon the lessons learned, benefiting from the participation of a community that's eager for change and eager for a return to greatness, that hopefully I'll be given the privilege of leadership, and in so doing, I still hope to be scholarly, and I hope to be orderly, and I hope to be able to bring a sense of true meaning to a great city called Detroit.
Well, that was a nice pickup on those words. Well, but I think you also are going to run into, I mean, I get this information from the paper that Mayor Young is going to be a major force in determining perhaps who his successor will be, and he has already given the opinion that you owe him a lot for the different appointments that have come your way. How are you going to work with that?
Well, I think what you're referring to is an article that originally appeared in the Michigan Chronicle, wherein the mayor was interviewed and indicated that he supported my appointment as a member of the Michigan Supreme Court. And he did, that's true. The ultimate decision, however, was made by Governor James Blanchard. The other thing that was not necessarily recalled by the mayor, but I hasten to add, is that in 1977 I spent a number of months as his campaign manager to assure his reelection for his first reelection campaign in 1977. And so I think we have contributed to each other's growth and development. But ultimately, we all must rise and fall upon our own ability. And I'd like to think that in addition to supporting my candidacy, he did so because he felt that I was the best candidate and the best person to serve the people of the state of Michigan. And evidently, the 9.2 million people in the state of Michigan felt the same way because they were kind enough to elect me to an 8-year term in 1986. And I traveled a lot of miles around this state and made some 435 appearances in an effort to win my seat on the Michigan Supreme Court, having been appointed by Governor Blanchard. And I was successful in doing so.
I really feel that perhaps, and this is just a comment, I think as Mayor Young reflects on his years in office, I think there are perhaps years of regret, and maybe this is why he feels so strongly about not giving up, that it's always the next mile that could be the golden opportunity for him. But that, I digress. I'll get back on my questions. Let's discuss what changes you envision on this, the matter of the city airport. What are your opinions about the expansion and the expansion that Mayor Young has proposed?
Well, frankly, I'm without the kind of information that the mayor apparently has that I do not have as it relates to the city airport. For example, I enjoyed the movie Field of Dreams. If you build it, they will come. But I think given the financial situation of the city of Detroit, we have to be a little bit more pragmatic than that. And so I guess I would have to be reasonably convinced that Southwest Airlines or some other commercial airlines would be so strongly interested in our expanding the city airport, and that it would provide such a strong economic base of opportunities for jobs and other related opportunities for business to move freight as well, before I could be convinced that we need to expand the airport. From what I read, to expand the airport in the manner in which has been suggested, we would have to displace about 2,500 homes and/or businesses. We frankly are not in a position as a city to lose. We're not in a position to lose any more people. The census has us pegged at 1,028,000 people, and as you may know, there are certain legislative enactments that help or go to the benefit of cities that are over 1 million people. Well, if you displace 2,500 families, I'm not sure what that will do to our population. So I would look for ways to increase our population rather than to decrease it. Now, on the other hand, if I were convinced that if we were to expand the city airport, it would be in the best interest of the people and the city of Detroit, I would go to the people who are going to be impacted, our suburban neighbors and friends, to see what we might be able to do to accommodate their concerns as we look towards the further growth and development of the city of Detroit. But as I said before, I don't have sufficient information, and I don't believe I will have it until after I've been given the privilege of leadership of becoming mayor of the city of Detroit, because there's no reason for people from Southwest Airlines or some other airlines to say, Dennis Archer, I understand you're a candidate, and by the way, if you're a candidate, here's some information I want you to have. Well, I don't have that, so I can't respond to your question other than to say that I would want to be convinced that there is a strong economic reason for doing so. Now, having said all of that, it is conceivable that contracts could be let and developments underway during the balance of 1993, over which I will have absolutely no control because I'm not a mayor at this point. And the expansion could take place despite whatever I may think or may come to learn following becoming mayor. So it's sort of a premature question. I guess if your question is, do I have any preconceived notions about city airport? No, I don't.
Well, I think one of the things that I would personally feel is that this is such a built-up area that the airport, for the expansion that has been in the paper, that was on the board for, I guess, one of the first, that every airline could conceivably land at City Airport. And I can't remember the one plane that could.
747.
The 747. Well, but
they were going to extend the runway. Excuse me. I think they were going to extend the runway, as I recall, several thousand feet that would allow for 757s, 711s.
Even the Concorde.
And like, I don't know if about the Concorde, but in any event, it would accommodate ample space. And I think if you talk to any pilot, frankly, the more runway they have to work with, the better they feel. But and the safety, it's a better safety provision for them as pilots. But I think, on the other hand, we have to take a look at some reasonable common sense in terms of what's in the best interest for the city of Detroit. Do we really have the money to invest? Once we invest it, is anybody going to come, etc.? I can't answer those questions.
No, and I guess one of the things that, of course, people in the Grosse Pointes and in neighboring communities, Warren and Roseville, St. Clair Shores, are concerned about is the noise level. And I realize at this point you can't address that, but I would think that hopefully one of your concerns, if all these contracts aren't let, is to consider Selfridge, which would be, which is there, which would save a lot of money, which might not impact directly on a job situation in Detroit, but certainly would in the greater area, and yet we could have a city airport.
Well, I would suggest the following, and without taking sides, please understand that, but without taking sides, I would suggest the following, that if you take a look at what's going on in Chicago before Midway Airlines went out of business, they had O'Hare, as we've got our Wayne County Metropolitan. They've got Midway as we have our city airport, and yet Mayor Daley, and I concede that the city of Chicago is a larger population base, but he was looking at creating a third airport because he could see the growth and development and how that would be beneficial to the city of Chicago as it relates to jobs and job opportunities, transportation, etc. I do understand the rationale for looking at Selfridge, but please understand the city of Detroit since 1958 has lost 200,000 jobs. We're not in a position as a city to be overly concerned about embellishing somebody else's job base if we're in a position to do something about embellishing the job base for the city of Detroit. We don't have a transportation system that will take our people to where the jobs currently are in a suburban community. And right now, the people of the city of Detroit are very generous in terms of our support for and with working with our suburban communities. We spend, it's been reported, we spend $3.6 billion in our city, but we spend $4 billion outside the city. And so when we spend the money outside the city, we are increasing job opportunities for businesses and for people who live outside the city of Detroit. We're increasing their tax base, their ability to deliver better city services than we are able to deliver for city services as our own community. So while respecting the rights and the concerns of others, I do think, nevertheless, it would be my responsibility, and one that I would aggressively take with a strong sense of urgency, to create as many jobs as humanly possible in the city of Detroit, and to create a retailing opportunity so that our people will have an opportunity to spend the money in the city of Detroit.
Well, but that kind of ties in with the next question, too, that we are having a future planning committee here in all the points in Harper Woods. And one of the items that has been discussed is that the continued deterioration of Detroit not only does devastating harm to Detroit, but it also impacts on all the communities surrounding Detroit. You mentioned that you do want a stronger business base and retailing base and all the things that would be wonderful, but how are you going to accomplish something like this when the main perception is fear of crime?
By destroying the perception. Frankly, our downtown is one of the safest downtowns in America. And I think if we compared statistics with any large city in the United States, we'd win hands down. Where the fear of crime and the perception of, or reality of crime comes in is where we have crime that takes place in our neighborhoods. And it's where we have crime that takes place outside of the downtown area that causes the fear or reality or perception of crime that deters people from coming in as visitors, whether suburban or coming in as members of a convention. So what I plan to do is to put more police officers on the street in the neighborhoods by negotiating, where appropriate, with our police unions and bringing from behind the desk, performing administrative jobs, some 276 to 380 police officers, and sort of download that so that we can have more police officers on the street. In addition to that, we will restructure the police department so that we can we can provide a better response to our community in terms of dealing with the issue of narcotics or dealing with the issue of gangs by reinforcing those departments to the levels that they were before prior to the 1991 layoff of 380 officers. I think by doing that and by putting our officers that were heretofore in our high schools and in certain of our middle schools and patrolling our bus lines where certain high schools have transfer points from bus routes and the like, and by having a strong working relationship between the community, which is already in existence but can be substantially reinforced, plus providing some in-service training to our police officers that will cause our officers to, with respect, and with the communities working together, take back our streets in such a way that the ACLU will give us an award of merit for the manner in which our streets are made safe. And also in terms of business, by adopting a pro-business attitude, as we will adopt a pro-neighborhood kind of attitude, and by having our city employees treat our neighborhoods, our people who live in the city, as well as the businesses who are in our city, as well as our visitors who come to the city, as if they're consumers, I think we can really bring about a substantial change. And you'll see a change within, in some instances, within the first 6 months, and in some instances within the first year, that will give the kind of good feeling to the committee of which you spoke. And when Detroit becomes healthy, as it will become healthy, when Detroit becomes stabilized, as it will become stabilized, as Detroit becomes a well-run, well-managed, safe, clean, and an educated city, we will succeed and excel. But our suburban communities, quite frankly, will far surpass us in your excellence and in your economic ability because of the health of the city of Detroit. And when the negative image that the city of Detroit has is no longer there, it will not impact upon the growth and the viability of our suburban communities in the southeastern area of Michigan.
I think that's, to me, it sounds wonderful, because I do think change can come about, and I think you're a very well-spoken leader who envisions Detroit in its glory days, that it can be that same image. But I wonder, can we change human behavior? This has changed all around the country.
Sure. I mean, I think that question, with all due respect, has been answered by two important elements that I think have contributed to the well-being and the safety of our people, both in the state of Michigan, the city of Detroit, if not the United States. And I speak of, for example, our smoking habits. You think back 10, 15 years ago?
That's right.
I mean, people would be smoking. I mean, it would be uncommon for somebody to be at a table not to smoke. I mean, you go out to a restaurant, and in between every course, somebody bring a salad, eat the salad. Next thing you know, somebody's lighting up, and we're talking, and I'm blowing smoke in your face, you're blowing smoke in my face. Now people getting all crooked neck, trying to, you know, blow smoke away from themselves. And the same thing with alcohol, Mothers Against Drunk Driving. There were times when people thought it was just fun. I mean, drink and then go drive. Oh, I got home last night and I don't know how I got there. They don't do that anymore because nobody wants to have the stigma of being caught drunk driving. Nobody wants to be behind the wheel and cause an accident where somebody's injured. So if you take a look at those two phenomena and you ask, can change be made? My answer to that is absolutely yes. And you should also appreciate the fact that the city of Detroit, the people who live there, are ready for it. And they're willing to make the kinds of sacrifices, if any, that must be made. We've got some great people who live in the city of Detroit. Everybody who lives in the city of Detroit, on balance, the majority of the people there, great law-abiding citizens, people who care about their families, people who have values like everybody else. There's a significant few that impacts or causes an impact on the entire city. And so therefore, when you say, can human behavior be changed? Absolutely. And I think that people who live in the Grosse Pointes or in our surrounding suburbs will once again have the pride that they've had in the past and say, hey, I'm from Detroit.
Well, and I think to myself, will education do a part of that job? I think of all the young people who are, the young girls who are having babies, babies having babies, and the young fellows that are not equipped to deal with the job because they haven't learned to read and to write, to express themselves properly. How are you going to change? Do you feel Ms. McGriff is doing that right now, implementing those procedures and putting them in place that they can be built on?
I'd rather answer the question this way. First of all, I think as it relates to education, we in America are losing. And it does not matter whether our children live in Grosse Pointe or Birmingham or Detroit or any of our suburban communities. because when you think about who they're competing against, young children who go to schools in Japan and Germany and other nations who those children go to school for 240, 243 days a year. They're in school for longer hours. They have a heavier concentration in math and science. They are, when they graduate from high school, they have a functional equivalent of a 4-year college education. Now contrast that against what's going on in the United States. We send our kids to school for 180 days. They go to school for shorter hours. 67% of our children, or 67% of the people who are graduating with PhDs in math and science, etc., are coming from countries other than the United States. So we as Americans need to focus on education. Totally, all of us. I think we need to take a look at increasing the number of hours and the number of days that our kids go to school. And I think by, at least now referring back to the city of Detroit, it would be my full intention to have us as a city adopt a commitment to educational excellence that begins to recognize that when a woman conceives and decides to take her child to term, that's when education really begins in the process. And what I mean by that is when a woman is pregnant, the health of the young child who is going to be born, or the baby is going to be born, is going to be influenced by what the mother eats or does not eat. And regardless of her station in life, and regardless of whether she happens to come from an affluent family or a family that has no insurance. And so it is imperative that we encourage good prenatal care for the expectant mother. Once a child is born, I think it's imperative that we begin to appreciate the fact that knowledge begins, and therefore we must have the kind of growth environment for that young child so that we can bring to bear an understanding that respect, discipline, and education begins in the home before a child is presented to Head Start or to kindergarten. And that once a child is in school, given all of that prior information, that it's important for us as parents to be active in our schools, to participate in the PTA meetings, to find out how we can further help our children, to make sure that our children are doing their homework, to make sure that we show them our concern about the grades that they're getting in school. These are the kinds of things that I think, while a mayor of the city of Detroit does not have a ordinance or a statutory responsibility to the education or to the school board, I do believe that there's a moral responsibility to provide that kind of leadership. And I plan to work very closely with City Council, work very closely with all of our appointees that will be appointed by the mayor to make sure that we work together as city government, working with the religious community, city government working with the neighborhood and community organizations, city government working with the business community, so that by using every available public forum such as this, or talk radio, or television talk shows, that we're speaking with the same voice, and that is we want to have a commitment to educational excellence, we want to have a commitment to good health care, and especially good prenatal health care, and that we want a commitment to zero tolerance of crime, and that we're not going to tolerate that we want safety and security. We want the kind of community where our senior citizens can live in peace. We want the kind of security where our children can be more concerned about what's going on in the classroom than surviving the school day. And we all have that problem. As I've noticed, for example, in reading the papers about some of our young children in the Grosse Pointe. Not all young children drink, but there's a significant number that do, that causes concern for the principals and the parents, and rightfully so. And so the whole community is coming together to work on that problem. You don't write the children off, and you don't put the weight or the blame on the schools, but rather as a whole community you begin to resolve that kind of issue so that our children don't raise themselves or raise us, but rather we raise our children.
I didn't even want to interrupt you because I think this is so significant, what you're saying. And that part of me really wants to tie in when you say you want to work with, like, I think of Archbishop Maida's concept of the Cornerstone Schools.
Sure.
And the De La Salle brothers are having a school where they mandate that children have to do homework between 5 and 7 in the school. I think these are the things that all of us coming together, not just to put it on your back when you become mayor or the city officials, but all of us striving together to implement that and put that in place. I say hooray. I just wanted to find out quickly, because our program is almost to the end, when you announced this or you discussed this with your wife and your children, what was their reaction? Did your kids say, "Gosh, Dad"?
Well, I've been very fortunate. My wife and I have been married for over 25 years. It'll be 26 years in June. We've got two sons, Dennis Jr., who is 19. He's a second semester law student at the University of Michigan. He's 24. Vincent is 19.
Oh, I was going to say, he's a smart kid.
Denny is 24. Vincent is 19. He's a second semester sophomore at the University of Michigan. They appreciate the fact that I have a commitment to public service. They recognize that we were going to have to make a financial sacrifice when I went to Michigan Supreme Court. Then they appreciated the fact that I had a certain feeling or calling that I could probably do more good if I left the Michigan Supreme Court to concentrate my efforts on trying to first come up with some solutions to the city, to the problems we face in the city of Detroit. And then once I was reasonably certain that I'd found some solutions that would work and that we could make the changes in the city of Detroit if I were fortunate enough to be elected, that they acquiesced and gave their blessing to the sacrifice that we have to make again as a family.
As a family.
Should I be fortunate to win the election. And they recognize that we all love the city. I mean, I was born in the city of Detroit. I met my wife here. I taught school for 5 years in the city of Detroit. I went to law school at the Detroit College of Law. We raised our children in the city of Detroit. So they know I have a very strong love affair with the city, as do they. And so they know that we can have a brighter future for the city of Detroit. So they said, "Hey, Dad, let the future begin."
That's remarkable. And I think we started this program out with change, and change is coming. And I wonder if all of us are ready to accept that change that Dennis Archer so beautifully displayed for us. Can we, as citizens of a suburban community, buy into that vision that he presented for Detroit? All of us are involved, and I say, let's go for it. Thank you, Dennis Archer, for joining us today.
Thank you very much.